His hands were shaking. Park Seo-jin, Korean billionaire. The coldest man I had ever met in my life. The man I had spent 365 days hating with every fibre of my being. Standing in my hallway at 3 a.m, hands shaking, eyes wet, looking at me like I had just performed a miracle he hadn't asked for and didn't know how to receive. I had no idea what I had done to him. I had no idea what Driver Kwan had told me that Rainy Tuesday Night had just rewritten everything I thought I knew about silence, about love, about the man who had never once knocked on my door. Not once. In an entire year. And yet, welcome besties. Hit subscribe. This is going to be spicy, and you don't want to miss a bit of it. Say hi in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. To my returning besties, if you stop in the middle of this story, you will have dreams wondering how it ended. So to avoid that curiosity, make sure you stay with us till the very end. I promise you will not regret it. If you enjoy Afro-Korean stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on that notification bell and share it with someone who would love it too. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this impossible story began. Back to Lagos, Nigeria. Back to the morning my father slid a photograph across his desk and changed the direction of my entire life. My father was crying. My strong, proud Lagos father, sitting behind his desk, sliding a photograph across the table toward me with trembling hands. I looked at the photograph. Korean man, late 30s, cold eyes. Expensive suit, barber. Or what is this? His family wants a marriage, my father said quietly. In exchange, they clear every debt, everything we owe. Gone. I stared at him. You want to sell me? I want to save 47 families. You want to sell your daughter? His eyes filled completely. He didn't deny it. I looked at the photograph again. Park Seo-jin. The man who had become my husband, the man I had already decided to hate before I ever met him. I had no idea how wrong I would be. I gave my father 3 days. 3 days of walking through our compound, looking at the staff, thinking about my mother's hospital bills, thinking about my brother's university fees, thinking about 47 families who had done nothing wrong except work for a man whose luck had run out. On the 4th day, I called him. I'll do it. But I want conditions. Anything. I will carry his name. I will go to Korea, but I will not pretend. I will not perform happiness for his family. And after 1 year, if I want to leave, I leave. Full settlement. No argument. My father was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'll make them agree. They agreed. 6 weeks later, I was on a flight to Seoul, South Korea. 2 suitcases, my art supplies, and a heart I had spent 24 years building walls around. I had no intention of letting any of them down. The wedding was 12 minutes long, no guests, no flowers, a ceremony room, a lawyer. My father on a video call from Lagos trying not to cry. Park Seo-jin stood beside me in a dark suit, looking at the officiant with the focused attention of a man reviewing a contract. When the officiant reached the part about kissing the bride, Seo-jin turned to me, read my face in exactly half a second, and gave the smallest nod. We can skip that, he said. Yes, I said. We can. He almost smiled. Then it was gone. That was the most human moment between us for the next 3 months. His penthouse was on the 41st floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, art on every wall. A kitchen that looked too expensive to breathe near. Seo-jin showed me to my room without touching me, without looking at me longer than necessary, without a single unnecessary word. Then he opened a door I hadn't noticed. A studio, north-facing window, natural light flooding in, canvases stacked against the wall, every paint, every brush, organised by size like someone had done research. I turned to look at him. You studied fine art, he said simply. I assumed you'd want space to continue. Then he was gone. I stood in the doorway of a room this stranger had built for me and felt something crack slightly in my chest. I welded it shut immediately. The first month we were ghosts to each other. He left before I woke. He returned after I'd eaten alone. We passed in hallways like polite strangers in a hotel. Good morning, good evening. Did you eat? Yes. Good. I painted. I called my family. I explored Seoul with driver Kwon, an older man with kind eyes and a habit of humming old Korean songs I found surprisingly comforting. I told myself this was fine. This was the arrangement. This was exactly what I'd agreed to. Then the snacks appeared. Chin chin, plantain chips, ground nuts in the specific brand my mother always bought. On the kitchen counter one morning like they'd always been there. I asked Mrs. Park. She smiled carefully. Mr. Park arranged it. I put that information in a box in my mind and locked it. Day 61. My mother called from Lagos crying. Her scan results. Cancer markers elevated. Another round of treatment. The costs were more than I could calculate from Seoul. I sat on my bedroom floor for an hour after the call, trying not to fall apart in a foreign country married to a stranger. That evening, Seo-jin came home early for the first time. He knocked on my studio door. First time he'd ever knocked. Come in, I said, surprised. He stood in the doorway, looked at my face, red eyes, tight jaw, the evidence of a woman who'd been crying and refused to finish, and said nothing for a moment. Your mother, he said, not a question. How do you... Mrs. Park mentioned you seemed distressed. I made an inquiry. He paused. I've spoken to a specialist at Asan Medical Center, one of the best cancer treatment facilities in Asia. I've arranged for your mother to be flown to Seoul next week. Full evaluation and treatment plan. All costs covered. Indefinitely. I stared at him. That wasn't part of the arrangement, I said carefully. No, he agreed. Then why? He looked at me with those unreadable eyes for a long moment. Because she's your mother, he said. Like that was the only explanation required. Then he left. I sat in my studio for a long time after that, paintbrush in hand, canvas untouched, staring at the door he'd closed quietly behind him. The crack in my iron heart opened slightly wider. I welded it shut again, harder this time. Besties, I need to stop here for a second. If you're watching from the USA, UK, Canada, Australia, or anywhere else in the world, drop your location right now and tell me. Does this man's silence feel like coldness to you, or does it feel like something else entirely? Comment. I'm hooked if this story already has you because we are just getting started and it is about to get very complicated. Month 3. Ji Young arrived. I was in the living room when the front door opened and a woman walked in like she owned the place. Because she used to. Korean. Beautiful in the way that looked effortless and cost a fortune. Designer everything. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. She stopped when she saw me. You must be the Nigerian wife, she said in perfect English. You must be someone who doesn't knock, I replied. Her smile sharpened. I'm Ji Young. Seo-jin and I were engaged for 2 years. I still have a key. That's a security problem I'll have fixed today. She laughed. Bright, practiced, musical. She sat down across from me uninvited. I just came to get something I left behind. Don't worry, I'm not here to reclaim him. I wasn't worried, I said. I don't have him to begin with. Something flickered in her eyes. She filed that information away. I could see her doing it. A word of advice? She said at the door. With Seo-jin, silence is the loudest thing he does. Don't mistake it for indifference. Then she was gone. That evening I went to Seo-jin's office for the first time. Ever. Your ex-fiancee was here today. He looked up from his screen. Something moved behind his eyes. Not guilt. Something older, more painful. I know. Mrs. Park told me. I apologize. I'll have the key deactivated. Why did you end the engagement? A long pause. That's not relevant to our arrangement. I'm making it relevant. I live in this house. He looked at me, measured me for a moment. She shared confidential information about my company with a competitor, he said finally. It nearly destroyed us. I ended it quietly, protected her reputation publicly. People assumed I was the villain. He paused. I allowed that assumption. You protected her even after she betrayed you. Destroying her publicly would have destroyed her completely. Whatever she didn't deserve that. I stood in his doorway looking at this quiet, complicated man and felt something I absolutely refused to feel. Good night, I said. Good night, Zara. First time he'd used my name. Month 5, the painting incident. I'd been working on a large canvas, deep reds and golds, something about fire and the distance between home and where you are. I left it drying and went to take a call from my brother. When I came back, Seo-jin was standing in the studio doorway looking at it. He didn't hear me approach. Or if he did, he didn't react. He was completely still, his whole body angled toward the canvas, his face, open, unguarded, affected in a way I had never seen before. What do you see? I asked. He startled slightly, composed himself immediately, but not before I'd seen it. That fraction of a second where Park Seo-jin looked like a man who felt everything. Distance, he said finally. And the thing you're reaching toward through it. What are you reaching for? I asked. The words came out before I could stop them. He turned to look at me. For 3 full seconds. Something I'm not sure I deserve, he said quietly. Then he excused himself and went back to his office. I stood in my studio with my heart hammering for reasons I absolutely refused to examine. Month 7. I found the hearing aid, small, nearly invisible, on his bathroom counter when I wandered in looking for Mrs. Park. I asked Mrs. Park quietly later. She hesitated. Mr. Park has a hearing condition, progressive nerve damage, stress-related. He's had it for 2 years, she paused. He doesn't like people to know. I went to my studio and sat in front of a blank canvas for a very long time. Progressive, stress-related. 2 years. Around the time of Ji Young. Around the time his company nearly collapsed. Around the time he'd apparently decided to stop letting anyone in. Carrying it alone. Going silent in a world that was literally going silent around him. I painted without planning. Blues and greys and a single thread of gold running through the middle of the darkness. That night I left it outside his office door without a note. In the morning it was hanging on the wall inside his office, directly across from his desk where he could see it from his chair. He never mentioned it. Neither did I. But something between us shifted permanently that night. Month 9. The night of the storm. Seoul was having its worst rainfall in a decade. Driver Kwon and I were returning from visiting my mother at Asan Medical Center. She was responding to treatment, her color coming back, her laugh returning. The storm caught us on the way home and Kwon pulled over, unable to navigate the flooding roads. We sat watching sheets of rain turn the streets into rivers. How long have you worked for him? I asked. 15 years, Kwon said. Since he was 21. His father hired me. He paused. Good man, his father. Hard man. But good. Is Seo-jin like him? In some ways, the discipline, the loyalty, the tendency to carry things alone. He glanced at me carefully. His father never learned to be gentle. Seo-jin knows how. He just forgot for a while that it was allowed. I looked out at the rain. He's very closed. Yes. Kwon was quiet for a long moment. May I tell you something, Mrs. Park? Something I've never told anyone? You can tell me anything, Kwon. He took a slow breath. Every night, every single night since you arrived in this house, Mr. Park goes and sits outside your bedroom door. I turn to look at him. He sits on the floor, his back against the wall, for 30 minutes, sometimes longer. He never knocks. He just sits there. Then he goes to bed. Kwon's eyes were steady on mine. He has done this 300 nights without missing one. The rain drummed on the roof of the car. Why? I whispered. Because, Kwon said quietly, It is the closest he knows how to get to someone he has already decided matters enormously to him, without risking frightening her away. I couldn't speak. His hearing has been improving, Mrs. Park. 3 consecutive audiologist appointments showing improvement for the first time in 2 years. The doctor asked what changed in his life. Kwon paused. He said, "My wife came home." The rain softened to something gentle. "He said that?" I whispered. Word for word, Kwon started the engine. "Oh, I thought you should know. Because I have driven this man for 15 years, and I have never seen him fight to hear something the way he fights to keep hearing your voice." We drove home in silence. I went straight to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, pressed my hands flat against my thighs to stop them shaking. 300 nights, outside my door, on the floor, in the dark, without asking for anything. Besties, are you still with me? Because I need you to stay. If you're watching from the USA, Canada, UK, Australia, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, drop your country below. And comment, "Love heals." If you believe this man's silence has been louder than most people's words this entire time, because what happens next will change everything. That same night, Ji Young called me. I don't know how she got my number. Her voice was smooth and careful. "I wanted to give you something," she said. "Information. Woman to woman." "I'm listening." "Seo-jin has been texting me, regularly, for months. Before you dismiss me, check his secondary phone, left drawer of his office desk. The grey one." She hung up. Every instinct told me it was manipulation. Every logical part of my brain said Ji Young had done this before and would do it again. But a small terrified part of me, the part that had just been told a man had been sitting outside my door for 300 nights, was suddenly desperately afraid of being wrong about him. I went to his office. He wasn't home. The grey phone was exactly where she said. I opened it. The texts were there. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Then I read them. Ji Young, "Please stop contacting my staff for information about my wife. If you approach her directly, I will involve my lawyers. This is your final warning. Ji Young, I am aware you've been telling people we're still in contact. We are not. Do not make me escalate this. Ji Young, whatever you're planning, stop. She's done nothing to you. Leave her alone." The most recent one, sent 3 days ago. "She's the first good thing that's happened to me in years. I won't allow you to destroy that. Not again." I put the phone down, sat on his office floor. The first good thing. I was still sitting there when he came home. He found me on his office floor. The grey phone beside me, tears streaming down my face, not from sadness, from something so enormous I didn't have a name for it yet. He stopped in the doorway, took in the phone, took in my face, said nothing for a long moment. Then he came and sat on the floor beside me, not touching, just beside me. The way he sat outside my door every night. "Ji Young called you," he said quietly. "Yes." "And you found the phone?" "Yes." "Did you read everything?" "Yes." Silence. "Seo-jin." My voice came out rough. "Why didn't you tell me about your hearing?" He went very still. "I didn't want you to feel obligated to stay," he said. "To feel like you were needed because I was..." He stopped. "Broken. You're not broken. My body is literally losing a fundamental sense and gaining it back." I turned to face him fully. "Kwon told me everything. He told me what you said to the audiologist, about what changed." The silence between us was enormous. "I shouldn't have said that to him," Seo-jin said finally. "Was it not true?" He looked at me then, the way he'd looked at my painting. Unguarded, undefended, every wall gone. "It's true," he said quietly. "Every word." We stayed on his office floor and talked until 2 in the morning. He told me about his father. Heart attack 18 months ago. 3 months before the marriage arrangement, he'd been so consumed with grief and company crisis that he'd agreed almost automatically. A solution to multiple problems. Clean. Efficient. And then I'd arrived. angry and stubborn and painting fires and leaving artwork outside his door in the dark, and nothing had been clean or efficient since. I told him about the fear, not of him specifically, of needing someone in a country far from home, of opening a door and finding it led to nothing. "That's why you locked the door," he said. That's why I locked the door." I knew. He was quiet. I always knew it was about the door. Not me, or not only me. He paused. "I sat outside it because I needed you to know that whatever was on the other side, I wasn't going anywhere, that I could be patient, that I wasn't entitled to anything you weren't ready to give." 365 nights, Seo-jin. Yes. You counted? Everyone. I laughed. That loud, unguarded, echoing laugh that bounced through his quiet apartment every time my mother said something ridiculous on a video call. The laugh I'd never tried to contain because I refused to make myself smaller than I was, even here. He looked at me when I laughed and his face did the thing. The private, unguarded thing. The almost smile that started in his eyes before it reached his mouth. "Muz, there it is," he said softly. "What?" "The thing that fixed me." He said it simply. "I know that sounds impossible, but the first week you were here, I'd been losing roughly 2% of my hearing range per month for 18 months. The week after you arrived, it stopped." He paused. "The doctors said stress-induced nerve damage can reverse if the underlying stress is addressed. But I wasn't addressing anything. I was just listening to you, existing in the same space as someone who was completely unapologetically alive. I wasn't doing it for you. I was just being myself." "I know." He smiled. The full smile. The real one. I'd never seen it before. It transformed his entire face. "That's the part that worked." That night, night 366, I walked to my bedroom door, and I opened it. I sat on the floor, back against the doorframe, feet in the hallway. 5 minutes later, I heard his footsteps. They stopped. A long pause. Then I heard him slide down the wall and sit. On his side of the hallway, a foot away, mirroring me exactly. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then I held up my phone. I'd been watching sign language tutorial videos for 6 weeks. My signs were terrible, slow and clumsy, like a child learning to write. I signed, "I know about your ears. I've been learning, in case you need it one day." He stared at my hands for a long time. His jaw worked, his eyes went bright. Then slowly he signed back. Fluid and practiced, the language he'd been teaching himself in secret for months. "I've been learning too. In case you ever wanted to talk and I couldn't hear you. I didn't want to miss a single word you said." And I looked at this man, this quiet, patient, impossible man who had sat outside my door for a year, who had learned sign language in secret, whose body had decided to heal itself simply because I existed loudly in his space, and felt my iron heart dissolve completely. I reached across the hallway and took his hand. He looked down at our joined hands like it was the most extraordinary thing he'd ever seen. Then he looked up at me. "Say something," he said. His voice was rough, unsteady in a way I'd never heard before. "Anything. I just need to keep hearing your voice." I laughed, loud, unguarded, echoing through the apartment at 3 a.m, and his hands, for the first time in 2 years, stopped shaking. 1 year later. We're in the rooftop garden on a Saturday evening when my mother video calls. She's back in Lagos, fully in remission. Her doctor using words like remarkable and unexplained in the same sentence as her scan results. She looks like herself again. Better, actually. Like something in her that had dimmed came back on. She takes one look at my face on the screen and starts laughing. "You're glowing, Zara." "Mama." "Don't mama me. Where is he? Let me see him." Seo-jin leans into the frame, slightly awkward in the endearing way he still gets around my mother who asks him 40 questions every call. "Seo-jin," she cries. "You look thin. Is my daughter feeding you?" "Your daughter made jollof rice last week that I'm still thinking about," he says. My mother screams with delight. "He knows about jollof. Zara, keep him. I keep him. I look at him after the call ends. This man who sat outside my door for 365 nights. Who learned sign language in secret. Whose hearing came back not because of medicine, but because of the simple, stubborn fact of being loved by someone who had no idea she was doing it. What are you thinking? He asks. That I hated you for almost a year. Almost, he agrees. There's that smile, the real one. What changed your mind? Driver Kwon has terrible professional boundaries, I say. He laughs, pulls me close, presses his lips to my hair. I'll give him a raise, he says. And that, besties, is the story of the year I spent hating a man who was quietly, completely, irreversibly in love with me. Did Seo-jin's 365 nights on that floor hit something in your chest? Did the sign language scene break you? Did the moment his hands stopped shaking undo you completely? If it did, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment in this story. Subscribe if you haven't already and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that love doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly outside your door and waits. And listen, if you scroll past without liking, commenting and subscribing, it means you're on Ji Young's side. The woman who faked evidence, tried to poison what Zara and Seo-jin were quietly building, and nearly made Zara walk away from the greatest love of her life. And I know that's not you. You're not Team Ji Young. You believe in patient love, in quiet love, in love that heals what medicine couldn't. So show me. Like this video. Subscribe to Afro Korean Love Stories. Turn on that notification bell. And share this with someone whose heart needs this today. To everyone watching from the USA, Canada, the UK, Australia, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, New Zealand, and everywhere else, this story has travelled. Drop your location below. I want to see every corner of the world this love story reached. Because Zara and Seo-jin made it. Against silence and locked doors and a woman determined to destroy them. Against hearing loss and iron hearts and 365 nights of waiting. They made it, and if they could, so can you. Until next time, besties, keep believing in love that heals. I'll see you in the next story.